Is it possible that a music certification, something that at first glance appears to speak only of streaming numbers and industry milestones, actually conceals a new map of power, a long-term agenda, and the most significant shift in BTS's history, deliberately left unannounced to the public? The question may sound excessive, almost provocative, yet that is precisely why it has begun to resonate since BTS's name was once again announced by the Recording Industry Association of Japan, RIJ, at the end of January, accompanied by a strange silence. No grand celebration, no explicit statement from management, and no official narrative that truly explains why this moment feels far more important than merely another certification. On January 30th, RIJ officially confirmed that 2 BTS songs had once again crossed major streaming certification thresholds in Japan. Yet to come, a song long positioned as a reflection on the journey and the closing of an era, surpassed 100 million streams and earned platinum status. Meanwhile, Love Maze, a song often emotionally interpreted as BTS's intimate message to ARMY, exceeded 50 million streams and received gold certification. By Japanese industry standards, these are extraordinary achievements. And yet, this is precisely where the first anomaly emerges. Why does an accomplishment of this magnitude feel as though it was announced in passing, without the triumphant narrative usually attached to BTS? Historically, RIJ certifications are anything but trivial. Japan is the world's second-largest music market, physical and digital alike, with consumption standards famously conservative and notoriously difficult for non-Japanese artists to penetrate. The fact that BTS has now amassed a total of 16 platinum and 48 gold certifications in Japan is not merely proof of popularity, but structural validation of their dominance in a market that remained largely closed to K-pop artists for decades. Moreover, 2 of their songs, Dynamite and Butter, have achieved diamond certification, over 500 million streams, records that no other Korean artist has matched to date. By industry logic, this should have sparked massive celebration. Instead, the public was given data, but not a story. This is where a second question begins to surface, sharper and more uncomfortable. Why has public and media attention slowly shifted from BTS as a collective toward a single name that repeatedly appears in quiet industry analyses, Jungkook? And further still, why does nearly every deep reading of BTS's post-certification direction ultimately point to another figure who rarely speaks yet determines everything? Bang Si-hyuk? Yet to Come is not an ordinary song. Since its release in 2022 as the title track of the album Proof, it has been conceptually framed as BTS's philosophical statement on journey, achievement, and the future. Its lyrics do not promise a higher peak, but something far more complex: meaning, continuity, and direction. When this song achieved platinum certification in Japan at the end of 2025, not at the height of promotion, not amid global hype, but during the waiting period for BTS's full comeback, it sparked speculation that there was extremely precise timing behind it. Is this purely the result of fandom enthusiasm, or part of a long narrative deliberately built step by step? On the other hand, Love Maze carries an equally important emotional layer. From the beginning, the song has been understood as a metaphor for the relationship between BTS and ARMY, about confusion, fear of losing direction, and the choice to keep walking together. Its gold certification in Japan at the same moment seems to reinforce an implicit message. The emotional bond between BTS and their global fandom has not only endured, but strengthened during the group's absence from full activities. Yet once again, the question is not whether BTS is still loved, that is beyond doubt, but why these data points emerge just before their major comeback, as if serving as a quiet prelude to something far greater. BTS is scheduled to release their 5th studio album, Ararang Arirang, on March 20, 2026, marking their first full-member comeback after nearly 3 years and 9 months. The album is reportedly set to feature 14 tracks exploring group identity, longing, and profound love, themes that sound classic, yet in the context of BTS have always carried political and strategic weight. Here, the artist certifications begin to appear not as isolated events, but as part of a narrative sequence assembled with almost academic precision. Japan, a market known for loyalty yet critical discernment, seems to be positioned as a barometer for global readiness to welcome a new BTS era. Yet one detail continues to unsettle observers. Every time discussions turn to the future of BTS, Jungkook's name surfaces with an intensity that is increasingly difficult to ignore. As the youngest member, main vocalist, and a figure with extraordinary cross-market appeal, Jungkook has long been regarded as a strategic asset. But within the context of these Japanese certifications, his position feels different. Streaming data indicate that songs dominated by Jungkook's vocals demonstrate exceptional longevity in the Japanese market. This is not merely about individual popularity, but an indication of how Jungkook's voice and persona resonate in a uniquely powerful way with Japanese audiences. This is where Bang Si-hyuk's presence begins to be felt, even though it is rarely spoken aloud. As HYB's chief architect and the figure behind BTS's overarching narrative from the beginning, Bang Si-hyuk is known not as a reactive producer, but as a long-term strategist. His decisions are rarely spontaneous. They are almost always grounded in data analysis, cultural trends, and global industry power dynamics. When the RAJ certifications were announced without fanfare, many analysts began to wonder, is this part of Bang Si-hyuk's quiet strategy, where data is allowed to speak for itself while public focus is gradually guided toward a specific direction? The BTS World Tour scheduled to begin in April 2026 further fuels this speculation. With 82 concerts across 34 cities and a record as the first Korean act to headline iconic stadiums such as Allianz Arena, Gillette Stadium, and King Bodwan Stadium, BTS is not merely returning. They are returning on a scale that is nearly unmatched. Tickets for dozens of shows across North America and Europe sold out even before the new album's release. This is an industry anomaly, and anomalies of this magnitude rarely occur without meticulous planning. Thus, the Japanese certifications, initially appearing as mere statistical notes, begin to resemble signals. Signals that BTS is not simply maintaining its position, but preparing for repositioning. And within this repositioning, Jungkook emerges as a key figure, not to replace BTS, but as an emotional and commercial axis capable of bridging the past and the future. Does this mean Bang Si-hyuk is preparing a new narrative, where individual and collective power are fused into a more complex form? Or is there an even bolder agenda, deliberately concealed until the moment deemed right? These questions have yet to receive official answers, but one thing is becoming increasingly clear. This RJ certification is not the end of the story, but its opening. An opening that is quiet, filled with clues, and perhaps intentionally designed to provoke interpretation. And if we dismiss it as just another piece of good news, we may be overlooking the moment when the direction of BTS's history begins to shift, slowly, almost imperceptibly, yet with an impact that will linger long after the cheers of their comeback fade. If RAJ certifications were merely about numbers, then why have industry analysts, Japanese media, and even global market players begun reading this data as a complex map of cultural politics, layered, intricate, and laden with long-term implications? This question arises because Japan is not just a music market. Japan is a space of validation. In this country, popularity is not built on short-lived sensation, but on consistency, public trust, and emotional attachment that develops gradually. When BTS continues to secure certifications in Japan even while inactive as a full group, what is happening is not simply the reconsumption of an old catalog, but a process of extremely rigorous cultural natural selection, and Jungkook stands right at its center. Within the RIAJ certification system, cumulative streaming does not merely measure how often a song is played, but how long it survives in public consciousness. Yet to Come and Love Maze are not new songs. There is no aggressive promotion, no massive algorithmic push like during their initial releases. Yet it is precisely under these conditions that their numbers have continued to rise steadily, eventually surpassing certification thresholds. This signals something far deeper. These songs have become part of Japanese listeners' emotional routines, not just fleeting trends. Behind this phenomenon, Japanese market research reveals a recurring pattern. Listeners in Japan tend to form strong bonds with vocal characteristics and personas they perceive as authentic. In the context of BTS, Jungkook occupies a uniquely strategic position. His vocals are perceived as clean and universal, easily accepted by Japanese ears accustomed to their own domestic pop structures. More importantly, however, Jungkook embodies an image of discipline, hard work, and sincerity, values that resonate deeply within Japanese culture. This is not mere emotional assumption, but an observation drawn from how foreign artists who succeed in Japan almost always possess a central figure capable of bridging cultural differences. It is here that RJ certifications begin to read as signals of selection. The Japanese market, indirectly, is revealing its preference. This does not mean other BTS members lose relevance, but Jungkook emerges as the point of convergence between the group's identity and Japanese market expectations. Songs with his dominant vocal contribution demonstrate remarkable longevity. This raises a new question, sharper and more sensitive. Did Bang Si-hyuk recognize this pattern from the outset and choose not to speak about it publicly? Bang Si-hyuk is known as a figure who understands the industry not merely as a creative space, but as an ecosystem. He reads numbers as a language. In numerous past interviews, he has repeatedly emphasized the importance of long-term narratives and audience trust. HYB's emotional restraint in responding to these RAJ certifications can thus be read as strategy, allowing data to construct its own narrative without excessive framing that could provoke public resistance. In this context, Jungkook is not explicitly promoted, but allowed to emerge organically through data and market response. This phenomenon becomes even more compelling when connected to BTS's comeback schedule and world tour. Typically, major achievements such as platinum certifications would be leveraged to amplify hype ahead of a new album. This time, however, the certifications appear suspended, left hanging, as if relegated to a quiet background noticed only by those who are truly paying attention. This has fueled speculation that Bang Si-hyuk does not intend to position Japanese certifications as a peak, but as a foundation for BTS's post-reunion narrative, where the group's strength is reinforced by figures who have already proven their cross-market durability. In this framework, Jungkook is not merely a center in the traditional K-pop sense. He functions as both an emotional and commercial anchor. When BTS returns as a full group, Jungkook becomes the bridge between longtime ARMY and new audiences, between nostalgia and the future. The Japanese market, through its RAJ certifications, appears to confirm that this bridge is solid. This is not a unilateral claim from the company, but the result of millions of listener choices accumulated over years. Yet herein lies the greatest surprise. The stronger Jungkook's position becomes in data and markets, the more Bang Si-hyuk chooses not to articulate it explicitly. There are no statements about a key role, no heroic individual narrative. This silence creates a wide space for interpretation, while preserving the group's internal balance. Bang Si-hyuk seems to understand that spotlighting one figure too brightly could disrupt the BTS ecosystem built on solidarity. Thus, the chosen strategy is to allow the public to arrive at its own conclusions. From an academic perspective, this represents a highly sophisticated form of soft power management. Rather than imposing a narrative, HYB allows market structures and audience responses to shape perception. RJ certifications become empirical evidence, not slogans. In this environment, Jungkook is not appointed as a major agenda. He is read as one through data. And precisely because of that, the impact is stronger and more enduring. This moment also reveals a compelling paradox. BTS stands at the peak of global recognition, yet their narrative is moving towards something quieter and more reflective. There are no grand declarations of directional change, yet all indicators point in that direction. Japanese certifications, the Arirang comeback, and the massive world tour form a straight line that is difficult to ignore. At the end of that line stands Jungkook as a symbol of continuity, and Bang Si-hyuk as the architect ensuring that this symbol never feels forced. Thus, the remaining question is no longer whether a larger agenda exists, but how far the public is willing to read the clues already laid out. Japan has delivered its validation through numbers. Data has spoken without a voice. And perhaps Bang Si-hyuk's greatest agenda is not to prepare a spectacular surprise, but to transform how the public understands BTS's power, not as a momentary explosion, but as an adaptive structure, with Jungkook as one of its most stable pillars. Is it possible that these seemingly quiet Japanese certifications are, in fact, the prologue to the most decisive transformation in BTS's history? A transformation that will only be fully understood once the album Erarang is finally released and stadium stages are filled with roaring crowds? This question becomes increasingly relevant as all the puzzle pieces are placed side by side. The timing of the RJ announcement, the specific songs that were certified, the absence of an aggressive official narrative, and Jungkook's increasingly central position without ever being formally declared the centered at Erarang is not merely an album title. It is a symbol of identity, a folk song, and a metaphor for a long journey marked by suffering, endurance, and collective hope. When BTS chose this name for their full group comeback, it is difficult to believe that the decision was not laden with strategic meaning. In this context, the Japanese certifications function like an early mirror, reflecting how the global public, particularly the most selective market, has already begun to accept the narrative BTS is preparing to carry forward. And within that narrative, Jungkook appears as the face of continuity. Young, disciplined, emotionally resonant, and remarkably translatable across cultures. Bang Si-hyuk seems to understand a crucial principle that the K-pop industry often overlooks. Transitions of power should not be announced, they should be felt. By allowing Jungkook to be read through data, market response, and emotional resonance, he avoids both internal and external shock. BTS is not displaced, fractured, or forcibly redefined. Instead, it is expanded. What once felt like a grand conspiracy theory begins to resemble an evolution that is almost organic. When the world tour begins and Erarang echoes through massive stadiums, the public may realize that what they are witnessing is not an ordinary comeback. The Japanese certifications will be reread as early signals, Jungkook as the emotional axis that had been quietly prepared, and Bang Si-hyuk as the architect who chose silence until the evidence became undeniable. At that point, the opening question of this article may no longer sound provocative, but nearly rhetorical. Perhaps the agenda does exist. Perhaps it was never truly hidden. Perhaps the public simply was not ready to read it yet. And when that moment arrives, the public will realize that BTS's greatest strength does not lie in loudly announced surprises, but in changes that grow slowly without resistance. The Japanese certifications, initially treated as routine news, will be remembered as the starting point where BTS's new direction first became legible to those willing to look deeper. Jungkook was never proclaimed as the center, yet his presence is felt across every layer of the narrative, as if he were the axis balancing the past and the future. Bang Si-hyuk, with his quiet strategy, seems to understand that in a noisy global industry, silence can be the most powerful language of all. And perhaps that is where the greatest agenda resides. Not in shaking the world all at once, but in guiding the world to follow change without realizing it has already stepped into an entirely new era of BTS.